Do not give up hope, and do not let a doctor steal your hope. Don't let anyone steal your hope. If you're not getting the answer that's satisfying to you, that's pushing you forward, getting your kid what he needs, you're at the wrong doctor. Move on. If you're going to an advocate and they're not advocating for you, move on. You need to not lose hope. In my world, it's all about the hope. Epilepsy itself is so challenging that the emotional roller coaster can just add to the condition, as it can with autism. And especially if it's the caregiver, we can't lose hope. There are so many solutions out there, and I could go on for hours telling you amazing stories of recovery that we have seen in our office.
Hi, I'm Lisa Ackerman. Welcome back to Moving Autism Forward podcast. I'm really excited today. We want to go over again our mission and our why. We're a podcast dedicated to empowering families, sharing hope, and helping each other's children make their most important progress. I'm Lisa Ackerman. I've got 25 years in this journey. I've worked with my son and have traversed the spectrum from high needs to low needs. He is a person with a bright future and has achieved incredible progress with perseverance and community. And here in this podcast, we focus on what works. Each episode is positive strategies and real life stories and voices. And we are all moving autism forward together. Join me in how we explore the ways. And who is this podcast for? It is for parents and caregivers. And with that, I want to introduce Brad Levy. Brad is the founder of EEG2Go. He's co-founder and program director of Epilepsy Awareness Day at Disneyland and the Epilepsy Expo. Brad tries to connect families with resources to achieve seizure freedom. His team puts the largest gathering of epilepsy parents, physicians, and resources in the country. And truly, his story is inspirational and a story of hope. Hi, Brad. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it. And we're going to talk about a lot of things. Your beginning, your turning point, where your daughter Sophie is today, how you got into community and advocacy, what the hell is your autism connection, and reflection and advice for families. So first and foremost, Brad, are you a doctor?
I am not a doctor, and I don't play one on TV either.
So that's important. And I love, go back to the beginning. Like, you're a parent like I'm a parent, and Sophie had her first seizure. What do you remember most about that moment and what happened?
Oh, right off the bat, you're going to punch me in the stomach and make me cry?
Yeah, give it to me. I'm sorry. I don't mean to make you cry.
It's okay. It's okay. So, Sophie's first seizure. We were all sleeping in family bed, and all of a sudden, I'm sorry, let me take it back. Sophie was 5 years old, and she woke up and stood up in bed and had lost her language. She was frozen, like playing freeze tag. And we had no idea what that was. We said, stop it, stop it. Sorry. We thought she was kidding. She was playing freeze tag. She just froze. And we thought she was kidding. And we tried to break her by coaching her out of it, and she wouldn't come out of it. And what seemed like an hour was probably, 45 seconds. And then she was petrified when she came out of it. We hugged her. We weren't really sure what we saw. We called 911. They showed up. Fire department showed up 10 minutes later. They laughed, said, "What's wrong? She's climbing on the stairs. She looks fine." And they left. The next seizure was not long after that. And it started out like that, but she was trying to talk and she was caught on a letter. She said, ah, 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 and could not get the word out. And the look on her face was like, wait, who took my language? And this is not a child with autism. This
Right.
is a
Everything was fine.
neurotypical kid that until that day, we said, we have the perfect child. The only one on earth, but we have the perfect one. And then the seizures. So, again, paramedic came by and basically said, you guys got to go to a neurologist. Your kid probably has seizures and you need to stop calling us. And that was the beginning of today.
I'm so sorry. That must have been completely scary and new territory.
We were able to take that and turn it into a beautiful thing that changed our whole lives. So it's sometimes, as with your story, right? Throw us in the flames and see what happens.
Yeah. So talk to me about 2 calls, 2 seizures, and now you're off to a neurologist, and you never thought in your world you would ever see a neurologist. How did the multiple diagnoses and treatments come about at that point?
Not easy and not good. This is already 20 years ago, and there were far fewer epileptologists, mostly neurologists, and they didn't seem to care. That's the beginning of that. Didn't really care. Didn't seem to be concerned. Didn't have answers. Gave us what seemed like a brush off diagnosis with not a lot of clarity or detail, and then right to the prescription pad for the meds. Now, I'm not anti-med, but I want to have some science. So are you not going to do a test on my kid? You're just going to give her medication? And what if it's not the right medication? And what if it doesn't work? And then what? And then what? And they didn't have answers. So my wife and I basically dragged Sophie around for the next 3 or 4 years, seeing different neurologists that just couldn't, one contradicted the other one, and we had multiple diagnoses, kept changing our meds, and they were basically discounting all of the information we had up to that date. So whichever doctor we saw, the doctor before knew nothing, and according to that doctor, misdiagnosed her and had her on the wrong meds. We finally went to an epilepsy conference for families, and we saw a doctor there who was very animated and seemed very knowledgeable and was actually an epileptologist, the first one we had met. And while she was on stage talking to families, she was reenacting what seizures look like. And because she's quite animated personality, she nailed these seizures. I mean, she did partial, she did absence, she did tonic-clonic, generalized. And when she was performing these make-believe seizures, 3 of them all looked like my daughter. And I looked at my wife and said, how could this be? She just said 3 different diagnoses and acted out seizures, 3 different types of seizures, and Sophie does all of those things. So we grabbed that doctor at the end of the conference. She was in a hurry to get home, and she didn't really like that I ran after her in a dark parking lot behind the church. But my wife was with me, so that kind of smoothed things over. We spoke to her. And she said, after realizing we lived in Irvine, California, she did too. And she offered to come and meet with us at our home and talk about our daughter's case. And that was the beginning of the future and Sophie's success, because she actually understood. She told us that we were seeing, doctors with rocks in their head. Why did they not explain that you can have multiple types of seizures, multiple different, semiologies, and they all require different treatments. So technically, Sophie could have been having 3 types of seizures and taken 3 types of seizure medications to remedy that. But while she was explaining that and flipping through my wife's very elaborate notebook with every blood draw, test, scan, doctor's note that we've ever had, including her original pediatric visit on day one. She found this MRI disc that we knew we had, but again, it was never shown to us or explained to us. And she popped it into her laptop and grabbed her head and said, I don't understand. This is Sophie's MRI? And I said, yeah, it is. And she just flipped her laptop around and said, what do you think about this image? How does this look to you? I said, it looks like a brain. She clicked the page. How does this image look? Looks like a brain. When she got to the third image, she said, how does this look? And I was basically looking at an image of my daughter's brain with the golf ball hanging off the side above her ear. And I said, what's that? And she said, that's a lesion on your daughter's brain. And that is aligning with where they are saying all of this EEG activity is coming from. So I said, wow, that's amazing. You just figured that out in 5 minutes? And she said, that's what epileptologists do. So next thing you know, we're having a surgical evaluation. And the doctor scared the heck out of us. He was so confident. He sat there with a smile, twirling his pen, and said, ask me the questions that you want to ask me. I know they're on your mind. And he was arrogant and cocky and confident, and it scared us. And I said, well, what are your statistics? And he said something like, well, I've done 877 of these. She would be 878. Okay. And your success rate? 875 successes. Go ahead and ask me about the two. And he explained those were extreme cases. One baby had multiple conditions other than the seizures, and they couldn't help that child. And another one had a cardiac issue, which also caused complications. But as far as the pure epilepsy work, this guy's batting average was unreal. So he still scared us, and we ran out of there saying, thank you for your time. It's a no. And then wasted another 1.5 years trying to fix it with medication and having seizures every day. Sophie almost never completed a full day of school. At that time, there wasn't really Facebook, and we didn't all have smartphones. So my wife's life consisted of dropping Sophie off at school, sitting in the parking lot in her van, reading magazines, and waiting for the school to call and say, Sophie had another seizure. She's taking a nap on her desk right now. And my wife would just walk in and bring her home. There's no point in leaving her in school. She can't function. She was done for the day. The way her seizures were, imagine being hit on the left side of your head by a frying pan. It only hurts for a second, but the ringing lasts a day. And that's what the seizure is like.
Poor Sophie. Poor
so that
you.
was that.
Your
now the good
family.
part. Do I go on to the good part, or do you want me to?
Yeah, why don't you, your trajectory, you're now 1 year into a seizure every day, multiple medications. What took you to the next step?
We're about 4 years into the seizures now.
Okay.
And we realized that although this man at UCLA scared us to death, we knew surgery was probably the option. So we went and met several surgeons, including the famous Ben Carson.
So what was Sophie's diagnosis at this time?
Sophie's diagnosis was a glioma on her left temporal region, which is where our language is housed. And that's why when she would have a seizure, she lost the language and a lot of her motor skills. Later on during the testing, when they decided that they wanted to remove that left temporal area, they needed to make sure they weren't stealing her language permanently. So they did this test called a WADA exam, where they basically anesthetize the side of the brain where they want to do the work and render it useless at the time. And she was chattering away through that procedure, and snapping her hands and singing her favorite songs and telling all of her meme's favorite cooking recipes. And they looked at each other and said, yeah, this must have been so early on that this impact caused her language to move on its own to the right side of the brain, and we won't impact her motor skills or her language at all. We could basically lop the whole left side of her brain off at this point. They didn't, thank God, but they knew that they could without causing any, major impact on her. So they knew that the area where they wanted to go do the work was safe. And after we interviewed 4 other surgeons, including Ben Carson, they all said the same thing. Wait a minute. You're here from Orange County, from Southern California? Did you guys ever talk to Gary Mathern at UCLA? He's the guy I would take my kid to. And that's the guy that scared me to death and sent us on our way. So, yes, we went back and saw Dr. Mathern. Yes, we kissed his tushy and apologized and begged him to take on our kid. And he said, let's get past all of that. When are you ready to go? I'm ready tomorrow. So we took about 2 weeks to gear up and get the team in order. And we marched on into UCLA on a Friday morning with our family, our friends, our rabbi. And that was it. We put our daughter in the room, kissed her goodbye, and started the prayers. And about 2 hours into the surgery, they sent a doctor out, a young resident, who's now actually the chief of the epilepsy team at UCLA. And she came out and said, oh my God, the most fascinating thing. As soon as they opened up the head and released the pressure, they stuck a grid on there to check the EEG, crystal clear. No abnormal activity. So it was the pressure from the brain growing with the lesion being so tight in the head that was the onset and the actual reason for the seizures. And since that day, we have just celebrated on February 27th, 17 years seizure-free after surgery.
I'm high-fiving you.
Amazing.
Across the internet.
Thank you. It's it has been the most amazing thing ever. It has completely changed our lives to the point where my family now lives, breathes, and works epilepsy and autism. It's our profession, it's our hobby, it's our life. It's what we do now.
I'm so sorry your family had to go through all of this, and I love Sophie so much, but I'm so grateful you are taking this experience. And I know people are probably wondering up to this point, why are we talking about seizures and not autism? Well, it's important, and I'm going to jump ahead.
Go.
Tell me about Sophie today. So she's been seizure-free for a long time.
17 years.
Yeah.
Sophie, she graduated college 2 years ago. She brought us to Texas. We moved from Southern California to Texas so that she could go to TCU. Her boyfriend at the time got a nice job here as an engineer, so he also was instrumental in dragging us to Texas. And they're getting married on Sunday, so I will have a bride and a son-in-law a week from yesterday.
I didn't know it was that soon. Congratulations.
And
That's
well, they've
wonderful.
been together 8 years. They met at the TACA conference 8 years ago. They wanted to have a first date, and I was at conference, and she said, he really wants to meet me. What should I tell him? Because you're working today. And I said, come to the conference. You guys can have a nice lunch in the lobby of the hotel. Lisa will get you a sandwich, and I will be able to babysit. And sure enough, this sweet boy drove out 3 hours from Bakersfield and came and had lunch with Sophie and was so shy to tell me that he only had $10 and he wasn't going to be able to put gas and pay for parking. So we took care of the gas, and they have never looked back. And from that day on, they have just been best friends, huge support for each other. Tony was in his first year of college. He's now got an MBA and a master's degree in engineering and is an amazing young man. And Sophie graduated and has her BS. and is still trying to figure out what she wants to do. Right now, she has a micro bakery doing all gluten-free, casein-free, dairy-free, soy-free bread, cookies, muffins. And she's trying to convert Texas to be a better eating place.
Well, you tell Sophie I need my samples since I'm her hookup for her true love. I'm just kidding.
You got it.
Congratulations to Sophie.
Thank
She
you.
is a miracle. And again, I'm very grateful to our audience listening because we're going to get into the autism stuff now, I promise. So talk to me now that Sophie's thriving and we're grateful she's off and living a beautiful life. Your family's journey didn't stop with Sophie's recovery, and I'm completely grateful. You built Epilepsy Awareness Day at Disneyland and a global community now. And what motivated you to turn this personal experience into a mission in helping others?
Well, that doctor who did the miraculous work on Sophie's brain, Dr. Gary Mathern, he's a bully. And he basically said, while he was eating a very nice steak and we were having a celebratory dinner after about 6 months of seizure-free freedom, he said, I think it's time that you think about your career choice and find a new opportunity so you could give back to the community that just saved your daughter. And I didn't really know what to say to that. At that time, I made and sold shoes for 30 years, and that's all I knew. So I kind of scratched my head and thought, I don't know how I'm going to get into the medical industry, and what am I going to do how am I going to give back to that community? And a few months went by, and I found myself with him at the American Epilepsy Society meeting in San Diego. And as I was walking around the expo floor there, or the conference floor, I met a gentleman who was making the first of its kind video EEG monitor so that patients no longer needed to stay 3 or 4 nights in a hospital. They could actually go into an office, have a device put on their head, and then go home with a small little purse, kind of like a Holter monitor for cardiac monitoring. And they could have these EEGs done in the comfort of their home instead of in the hospital. And he mentioned that it was basically a perfect fix for hard to manage kids and kids with autism, because no child's going to spend 3 nights in a hospital when they're relatively healthy. And for sure, no autism mom is going to allow her child to be in the hospital for 3 nights. So it sounded great. I had to figure out a business plan. That didn't take long. Soon enough, I owned a machine. I moved into a medical practice with that doctor who originally helped us get Sophie on track by identifying the misdiagnosis that we had been living through. And she gave me some space, and I started doing EEGs on kids with epilepsy. Not even a few weeks into that, I had my first few autism patients come through, and it just worked. It was just, a perfect fit. I didn't really have a lot of knowledge about autism. All I knew was when I was manufacturing shoes, a company hired me as a consultant and said, we want to make shoes for kids with sensory issues. And a lot of them like to splay their toes and wrinkle their toes and don't like socks with seams and have issues with things that bind on their feet, which is why many of the people watching this podcast will understand that their kids don't wear shoes or they live in Crocs. And that's because they like that freedom with their toesies. So I started manufacturing sneakers with Velcro closures that had extra wide toe boxing and room for all that toe dancing. And that was my only experience with autism, other than I had a lot of customers coming in and buying those shoes. And now here I am putting brain scans on kids with autism And I really didn't understand what we were doing. I just knew how to do it and how to do it well. And I can't even tell you it's been the most amazing trip this last 15 years doing that has just been nothing less than an absolute miracle and the best thing that's ever happened in my life besides my wife and daughter.
Oh, well, I'm grateful to call you a friend. And so in the 15 years, how many EEGs have you done?
We have just passed our 9,000th patient. We've done 7,000 kids with autism.
Okay, so of the 7,000, how many are abnormal and have abnormal activity or epilepsy?
So I am learning now how to respond to that question that I get it all the time. There's two ways to look at it. We are pretty positive that more than 50% of the kids we screen have abnormal EEG showing some spikes and discharges. Now, we are also a very tight partner with the top 5 autism research treating doctors in America, all people that you know that you're close with. I don't know if I'm supposed to be dropping doctors' names on this. Well, I mean, Dr. Dan Rosignol has basically made my career. That man has sent us so many patients, and he has an uncanny way of knowing who needs EEGs and who doesn't. So in his population, we're about 70% abnormal. I mean, he just sniffs it out. Dr. Richard Fry, he sniffs it out. Dr. Fry would order an EEG on almost every patient because he wants all the data that he can get to make his diagnosis and to make recommendations on how to recover these kids. And he has taken, the basic 24-hour EEG and has figured out that he has much broader use with 3 nights of EEG. And when patients' parents are saying, I don't know how that kid's going to keep it on for 3 nights, he says, do you want the answers? Do you want me to be able to make the most help that I can do? I want the 3 days of data. Worst case scenario, day 2, the kid has a meltdown, tears it off his head. I still have my 30 hours of recording, and he's going to be able to do a good job with that. But this is a Harvard neurologist we're talking about. He is going to say, I could have done so much more with 3 nights of recording. I'm just saying, that's Dr. Fry. And doctors like that, from that population, we're getting about 70% abnormal from the patients that are A, taking the time to test, B, getting a quality read on that EEG. I mean, my medical director, Dr. Millette, who reads our EEGs for the last 13 years, is like a seizure detection dog. I see EEGs coming through, 70 hours of recording, and he is noting one spike on night 2 at 3:05 a.m. The duration of the spike is 1.5 seconds long. And he's finding that across 70 hours of data. This is exceptional medicine. The word blessed is an understatement that we are so lucky to have Dr. Millette.
And Millette's out of Hogan, Newport, right? Hogan, Newport.
He's at Hogan, Newport Beach, yeah. Mm-hmm. And he has changed the lives of so many TACA kids, so many kids with autism across the globe who were lucky enough to see a specialist, to get them to us. We could capture the data, get Dr. Millette's brain to read that data, and get them back a report, and they're on their way to treatment. So that's kind of what keeps me that's my juice. I couldn't tell you who's in the World Series. I couldn't name a Super Bowl player for the last 15 years, but I know every doctor who knows autism. I know every expert EEG reader. I know who is willing to treat these kids and who's going to dismiss them. And that's how we decide who we refer our patients to.
Oh, God bless you. And I'm grateful again. We know at TACA, It's somewhere close to half or more. Last time we looked, it was maybe around 60%. Again, that's a guess. We're not scientific. That our kids are having abnormal EEGs. And we know when you treat, where you test and treat, and you have a treatment plan, these kids can do great things. And it's not what Sophie went through.
No.
But it is definitely something that is treatable. Sophie is how you got here, and I'm grateful.
Sophie, and that is rare. So Sophie is, maybe 1 in 1,000 patients. At the time Sophie had her surgery, 1 in 5,000 patients with epilepsy would even get to surgery. Having a seizure-free, successful surgery, absolutely perfect outcome, barely any. It was very small populations. It was like a needle in the haystack finding the perfect candidate who would benefit from the surgery. Now, it's like 1 in 100 patients can benefit from the surgery. So they've come a long way, but it's not every patient with epilepsy does not require surgery. These small, absence spikes and discharges, if they're treated early on, they dissipate and disappear, and we never see full-blown seizures on these kids, which is why we encourage doctors to encourage families to get an EEG at the earliest symptom, because we don't want to wait for full-blown seizures to start a diagnosis and a treatment plan. That's, my easiest analogy, and I use this often when doctors tell patients, I saw the report from EEG to go. I'm not so concerned. Let us know if he has a full seizure at school or a clinical seizure. And I want to tell that doctor, listen, if you smell smoke at night when you're sleeping, do not pick up the phone and dial 911. If you look out the window and you see a small little couple of leaves on fire, do not call 911. My friend, the firefighter, is sleeping and doesn't really have time to be concerned with that. But when your house is fully engulfed in flames, pick up the phone and I'll make sure he gets there quick, and he'll put out that fire as best as he can at that point when your whole home is engulfed. And I'm not allowing you to tell that to a patient that I care for and tell them there's a couple little sparks on the brain. It's not a forest fire yet. Don't be concerned. That's not okay. We need to douse those sparks now, calm that brain, never talk about a seizure ever again. We're not waiting for seizures. We're going to proactively source out any spikes or discharges and go after that treatment today and preemptively prevent seizures.
Well, we know with abnormal EEGs, that means brain development is impaired. And if you can test, treat, you have better brain performance, and kids with autism do so much better. So I applaud you for continuing to look for those leaves on fire and dousing them before they become a huge house fire. I love that.
Especially our nonverbal kids. That's a huge piece.
Without
if your child's
question.
nonverbal, there's a huge chance that they've got, there's issues that I don't know about. I am not a doctor, but I do know that temporal lobe discharges are going to interrupt your language and can completely take language away. So, if it's not a regression, but we're not developing language, then that could be, seizure activity on the temporal region.
Great. I'm glad we hit that one straight away, because our pre-verbal kids need that opportunity to develop into their full potential. And if seizures are prohibiting communication in the traditional sense, we need to act quickly, and it's so imperative. And I want to pivot a little bit to what you've done at Disneyland and soon to be Disney World. You created this International Epilepsy Awareness Day at Disneyland, which has built a global community, which I know you have people who fly in from all over. What motivated creating that community where you have over 6,000 attendees now, right? How many were at the last one?
We had over 6,000 last year.
Okay, see, I pay attention.
Well, you were there. You see the crowd.
Yeah, yeah. And I've been to, I think, every one, and they're a pleasure because of so many people who need the help. And, I feel very fortunate in the world of autism because it's not some of the conditions, neurologic conditions, that have much more ramifications and seriousness of treatments. I feel like with autism, we have so much potential, especially as it relates to epilepsy and abnormal brainwaves, that we can make a big difference. So talk to me about Epilepsy Awareness Day at Disneyland and soon to be Disney World. What happens there?
It's so I'm gonna cry again.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, the same, again, when a doctor says to you, you are so lucky that you got that outcome with your daughter. Why don't you do something to give back to the families and the community? Let's get a family event put together where we could get everybody and everybody with epilepsy and get them united and try to have a big gathering and spread the awareness. So 14 years ago, we gathered up some folks, did some Facebook marketing, and got a little discount from Disney to do an event. Yay! And that first year, we didn't even have an expo. We just rallied up all our friends with epilepsy, and we had a little over 900 people at Disneyland running around in our purple shirts, everybody hugging each other and crying and celebrating life, but just having a fun day at Disneyland, which I thought was the whole goal at the time. Everybody getting together and uniting. And towards the end of the day, where my shirt was completely wet with tears and sweat, and we were all hugged out and cried out, and my wife and I were kind of making our way towards the exit, and a lady walked up to me wearing our shirt and her Minnie Mouse ears, and she said, "I think I've been looking for you all day." Okay. Are you the one who puts this event on? Yeah, my wife and I. You did an amazing job gathering all these people. This is really unreal. And I feel so lucky. It's magical seeing all the purple shirts. But you totally blew it on the educational piece. And there's no takeaway. And even though these families are happy today, tomorrow they're going home to Seizures, and they're not going to be any better off than they were today before they came to Disneyland. And I thought, what? Did you really just say that to me? And before I could say anything back, she said, "Oh, by the way, my name's Dr. Deborah Holder. I just moved to California. I'm the new epilepsy chief at Children's Hospital. And next year, I'm going to help you do an education expo, and we're going to school these families and teach them about epilepsy." And I said, "Wow, that sounds like a great idea."
So Dr. Holder was the aggro
She
parent.
was the one who did not like that we didn't have a conference. Oh. So the next year, we had our first conference in the basement.
What year was that, Brad? What year was that? 2014, 2015?
Yes, 2014.
Okay. I was there.
What's that? Yeah.
I was
2014, the first conference. Yeah, I have a picture with you and some of your original Taka moms and your kids at Disneyland, the three of you. Yeah, that first year we had a small conference in the hotel basement, basically, of what was the Fairfield Inn, I believe. And we had three doctors standing in the corner giving talks to a group of about 50 people. And we might have had, 300-400 people show up that day. And then the next day was the day in Disneyland. I don't need to give you the details for every year, but last year on our 13th year, we now have every square foot of meeting space of the Disneyland Hotel, about 130,000 square feet of meeting space. We had 44 epilepsy centers on the floor, over 100 vendors, and 78 formal presentations from the world's, leading specialists in epilepsy and in autism. We're so fortunate. We have Dr. Dan Rosignol speak, Dr. Richard Fry, Dr. John Gaetanis. It's a huge crossover with the autism and epilepsy community. The amount of kids with the dual diagnosis is staggering. And just what every mom with a child on the spectrum needs is a little a la carte order of seizures to add to the plate. Being sarcastic, nobody needs seizures. But the conference has been very impactful. I get to do something that I've become pretty good at. I have to say, I'm sorry if I sound egotistical, but I'm very good now at hearing family stories, figuring out the missing piece, and something clicks in my mind and I know the doctor that's able to fill that gap. And I bring that family either across the country to attend the expo, or if they're landing in the expo and that's my first chance to meet them, I take them around the floor and introduce them to the top doctors that I think are going to be the best fit for them, personality-wise and with the toolbox that he's going to need to meet those specific challenges of that patient. And we make miracles happen every year. It's unreal. I'm not taking credit for it. I don't do this. God does this. I wake up in the morning, he smacks me on the back of the head and says, today, this is what you have on tap. There are 5 patients coming into your office. All 5 of them need help. Go get it. And I don't know. I find my way to the office, and the patients show up and we take care of business. That's what I do.
That's why we work together so much on so many kids. And for the listeners out there, the expo at Disneyland and Disneyworld is free. They can sign up, they can go, and they can hear. And what's even better is Brad makes all this information with his lovely wife Candy available. There's 400 full-length presentations from the world's top epileptologists and neurologists and neurosurgeons available, and they're in the show notes. So you can sign up, go be part of Epilepsy Day and learn about it. Also in the show notes are the links to the TACA website for understanding about seizure testing and treatments and what are the common things that you can do. Because both Brad and I are not doctors, but we know how many people we see every day that have both epilepsy and or abnormal brainwaves and autism. It's staggering. And we know with treatment, these kids can go from a special day class to regular ed, to college, and to big dreams. And that's all we want, is big dreams to become a reality. So I appreciate you, Brad, for that. And, now that you know, Sophie brought you to autism, and I'm so grateful. And Candy, too. Please tell her hi. What do you want to see as you look forward for the autism community? What do you want next? For that community?
Well, I know that you and a few of the docs we work with are making some waves, and you're getting listened to. You're finally getting your voice heard, and I'm hopeful that we're going to see more testing and government intervention and pushing this diagnosis path. I'm hoping to get a call from somebody who says, are you willing to test 1,000 kids for a trial so that we can actually document some of this stuff and get some more credibility? I mean, I believe in it. The top doctors across the country believe in it. We need the rest of the medical world to believe in it as well. And it's I can sometimes have a negative attitude. If a doctor wrongs one of my patients, he's indefinitely off my list. I tell patients, drop the zero, get with a hero. I'll help you find one. Everyone I know wears a cape. Every doctor I know wears a cape, or they don't speak at Epilepsy Awareness Day. So when I text a doctor and say, hey, do you have 10 minutes to talk to this mom? She is so distraught. I completely understand where she's at. It's a rare genetic condition. I know you know about it. There's no way she could travel to see you. And I'm expecting that doctor to say, yes, get me mom's number. I'll call her. And if she doesn't, then, the cape comes off and she's no longer the hero. And I'm so blessed. I have, stacks of those doctors that are willing to take my call because they have seen what we've done at Epilepsy Awareness Day. And what I'm hoping is that we have less zeros and more heroes stepping up. And more people need to think outside the box. It's been very eye-opening the last couple of years, mostly post-COVID, how many new functional medicine doctors and medical practices are opening up. And they're addressing functional medicine and well-being for adults. And most of what they're doing could impact and benefit our kids. And it's things that, TACA has been recommending for our children for years, but now adults are jumping on the bandwagon because they want to feel better. So if they're understanding that there is an opportunity to make their own well self feel better, they need to start understanding that we can do this for their kids too. And they need to start chasing those opportunities. So we need more accessibility for diagnostics and research and treatment. And we need, more support. And we need more TACA.
Well, that's why we work together every day. It seems like there's someone coming your way from us, and we appreciate what you guys do. And I just want for the mom or the dad out there to know, if you have a nonverbal, aggressive, spacey, or a kid with sleep disturbances, or has a skill, loses a skill, that should be your key indicator, especially if you haven't gotten a 24-hour EEG, either through your hospital or call Brad and he can take care of you. Please, please, please look into seizure activity. It is heartbreaking how many people I've met. Someone who is 22 years old, nonverbal, got his first EEG and was able to begin to acquire language and skills. But if we could have only have done that with a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, when it should be done on every patient, every person with an autism diagnosis should have access to this. So
I agree.
Again,
I agree.
Not a doctor, but those are just a small example of samples of what to look for. But Brad, if a parent's out there listening today and just witnessed their child's first seizure, is terrified about the future, please share with them some thoughts and wisdom.
Do not give up hope, and do not let a doctor steal your hope. Don't let anyone steal your hope. If you're not getting the answer that's satisfying to you, that's pushing you forward, getting your kid what he needs, you're at the wrong doctor. Move on. If you're going to an advocate and they're not advocating for you, move on. You need to not lose hope. In my world, it's all about the hope. Epilepsy itself is so challenging that the emotional roller coaster can just add to the condition, as it can with autism. So and especially if it's the caregiver, we can't lose hope. There are so many solutions out there, and I could go on for hours telling you amazing stories of recovery that we have seen in our office. And even though we are simply doing the neurodiagnostic piece, when we see a kid come in 1 year and we need to basically wrestle him down to get that EEG cap on his head, and I leave with a bite mark on my arm and spit on my shirt, and whatever else he wiped on me during the process, I take the lumps with a smile because I know we're making an impact. Now we'll see that kid 3 years later into treatment, and he's sitting still in the chair. He's using an assisted communication device or a letter board and having a full conversation with me. because I talk to every single kid that comes into my office, regardless if he's going to speak back or not, because I know every single kid is receiving my words verbatim and completely grasp what we're talking about. So we have a lot of one-way conversations, but I know what he's telling me. We communicate. And jump ahead 3 more years. He's 6 years now on treatment. And that kid is talking to me from that chair that I wrestled him down in 6 years previously or prior. So do not lose your hope. I'm telling you, the answers are out there. You just have to dig for them. They're not going to land on your lap by themselves.
Yeah, God bless you, Brad. And I know that you did a really great job on the EEG2Go website, and it's in the show notes of what to expect. How does the EEG process work? How do the leads get put on the head? How does the head stay intact with a cover, and how the backpack goes home? You know, Jeff has benefited by, I think you've done 3 clean EEGs on him, and I'm grateful for that. Thank you. I know for me, it's just part of the rule it in or rule it out process. Don't be afraid of finding something, because if you do, it's access to treatment and to possibilities. But don't be afraid of ruling it out. And it should be, and it is in the American Academy Pediatric Standards of Care for Autism for every child to receive an EEG. We can argue over length of time. 20 minutes is not enough. 24 hours, the bare minimum, and they do need to be repeated, especially with young kids, puberty, and at adulthood. So correct. I know there are some best practices. That's in the TACA seizure page, which provides additional information and what have you for treatment. And, you know, if you're around Disney World in April, you can go and experience Epilepsy Day there, and then here back in SoCal where I am, and I go every year. I haven't missed one in November for Epilepsy Day. So, and they're free. You just have to sign up, and only 6,000 of your closest friends will be there as well.
Exactly. So, and all the doctors and all the help. And if anybody is struggling with their seizures and is not getting it, and anything I said makes sense or hits home, feel free to email me. I'm happy to help. I want to help everyone with seizures and autism. I will do whatever I can. If I don't have the answer, I'm finding you your answer. And it's just brad@eeg2go.com, and I definitely will respond. It may not be within 5 minutes, but it will be that day. Ask for help, you're gonna get it.
God bless you. You are my person who helps me make good things happen here at TACA, and I appreciate what you do for our community and how much you care. And I'm sorry Sophie brought you here, but I'm grateful she did. Thank you.
And so many kids have benefited because of Sophie. So I'll take that, and we'll take that, the negative experience, and just, you know, we'll use it for fuel. That's all. It's all good. It's all good.
It's so funny. There's so many people who don't know Sophie's story and your journey. They're going to learn it today, and I'm grateful we were able to capture it. I'm sorry we brought back so many memories, but I revel in the fact that here she is. She's going to be a married woman in 6 days. And I'm just thrilled. I know, but I'm thrilled for you, my friend. I'm thrilled.
Me too.
To know she has experienced so much joy and growth because of your perseverance with Candy and your bride. I really appreciate the two of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for walking with me. Thank
Amazing.
you for talking
Are you
to
kidding?
me.
This has been great. I just want to grow up to be like you.
Oh, shush. We're friends forever, my friend, because of what we can do and the lives we can reach. And so many kids deserve someone that believe in them. And I'm so grateful you're on that end for some people's journeys. They're very lucky to run across you. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, but thanks for your time. And for parents, please don't give up hope. You know, Brad's shared a great story about Sophie, and your great story is just around the corner. You know, don't be afraid of a test. Rule it in. And Brad tells me about the 9,000 kids. There's maybe two kids that he's never been able to get an EEG. And we have found a way to do it. I know you've backed in and you've gotten those too. I'm sure you have.
No, I've got about 8 kids in my whole
8?
career of 15 years that we couldn't get done. But, I can only do so much when the 6'3", 260 pounds. It's kind of hard to manage some of those guys. But we do the best we can. And for the most part, we get everybody done. And I know people are watching this saying, my kid will never leave that on his head. Yes, ma'am, he will. Come and see me.
Yeah, and I'm just grateful that you don't give up. I mean, my goodness, only 8 out of 9,000 is a pretty good ratio.
How can I give up when all my mentors, all of my advocates like you, all of the doctors that refer to me, you guys don't quit. You don't stop. You take those calls in the middle of the night from crying moms. You'll keep pushing forward. They don't have money, you find a way to get them services. They don't have time, you make the time. They don't have access, you're finding their access. This is, I can't not perform when I'm running with folks like you guys who perform. I have no choice. I have to step up my game.
Well, your game is great, my friend. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for taking the time today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye.